Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, children of all ages, welcome back to episode 5. And, this is a great episode to take a lot of information from. I worked together myself to put all this in skill. I have been known to work with people all over and over again, and it doesn't work out. So this is the reason why that I made this podcast, is to explain why you keep adding people back in, why it does not work out. Going to the first thing that I'm going to say, definitely welcome first, of course, DJ Chaotic to the mix, because we got a lot to cover during this episode. So get your popcorn ready, get your questions out, because like I said, this is going to be a barn burner for a show. You definitely want to be ready to have your questions in the live comments if you guys got any questions. But we're going to take this now to our first thing of this thing. And the question is pretty simple. It's pretty self-explanatory, if I could say that. And I'm going to bring this question up now. And DJ, we're going to hit the first floor with this one. Why manufactured chaos fails in CAW communities? And that's the title of the episode. We're going to start off strong and main event this strong. So, like I said, get your popcorn. And DJ, you got the floor.
Well. Why manufactured chaos fails in CAW? Let's just put this in perspective here so you can understand. If you allow toxic narrative people, if you allow the drama to go unchecked, then how are you any better to be effective in CAW if you're not willing to check what is right in front of you? From pedophilia to any dispute that goes on in your chat to anything outside of the narrative that hinders your show in general. I mean, let's keep it a buck here. You say you want better environment for the community. If you want better environment for the community, it starts with you. It starts with you evaluating your roster, knowing who's the good, knowing who's the bad, knowing who's the obvious that you need to get rid of. Because without you doing your due diligence for your roster, how are you protecting your environment? How are you protecting your show? How are you being effective in the community if you're not willing to listen to other show owners? I mean, let's be honest. Because in most cases, if you're not willing to listen to what show owners bring to the table, how are you going to be a better show owner yourself?
The two things that I'm going to touch on this topic here, if DJ's, of course, finished with this question, but I got a lot to say on this, myself. Why manufactured chaos fails in EVERTHING communities. There's two things that I know that I call flaws. Don't know what, you guys think. Like I said, you guys got your own opinion in the chat. Everybody's got their freedom of speech rights as an American citizen. So you guys can freely express how you feel in the chat. There's nothing I can say or do, so feel free to do so. But, this is how I feel like the flaw in CAW and reason why, some things are failing. One would be EFEDs rely on unpaid passion. Unlike multi-million-dollar corporations with HR departments and legally binding contracts, EFED runs on volunteer effort, free time, and fun. So in other words, they making it more like a company base than the fun of reality of it. And that can be that can create two things. That can create hostile environment, which, you get a lot of people, really hating the fact that you're pushing it towards that route. Then you got what we call supporting unit. You're going to have people supporting you. And, going back to why, it's going to fail, is the second topic I'm going to bring up. Real drama kills creative drive. People bring an active personal grudge into a community under the guise of disruption, or breaking the fourth wall does not create compelling storylines. It causes burnout. Volunteers leave the moments. Real life stress outweighs the creating fun. And, the thing is about breaking the fourth wall. And here's the reason why that I say this. It's just like, okay, you are in a house. What happens if you break all the walls around you? Eventually, that support unit is going to break and that roof is going to fall down. Same way with the CAW community. You are just breaking every fourth wall. You're breaking every wall in the structure that's holding up the real foundation, and you're not thinking clearly of what you're going to get yourself into when you break down these walls. It's like, it's like stupidity meets, ignorance. You got to know when to outsmart the two, outweigh the balances here, because I mean, if you're gonna tear down the walls, I mean, be my guest. But at the same time, I'm just telling you from what I see that's going forward is, DJ can tell you I'm right about this. When you break a wall, you're gonna have that roof cave in on you, and then you're pretty much screwed.
Exactly.
Especially, if the roof is made out of, let's say, concrete, or like iron, like steel. You're not Superman. You're not going to be able to pull it off of you. Same thing with the forbidden door stuff. You're basically taking away the structures and the walls away that's keeping the product alive, keeping CAW safe. You're breaking every barrier out there, that you're letting pretty much these criminals tear down the structure, and pretty soon you're just going to have the whole roof cave on you and the criminals.
And I said this in one of my shows with CJ and on CJ's end. I don't know if y'all paid attention to it. Without structure, you have no context. Without context, you don't have no value to your product.
I definitely agree with you on that. Also, there's another thing I want to bring up with the flaws too. The contradiction of unit through chaos. You cannot deliberately recruit violent, high conflict personalities to stir the pot and then expect them to magically leave the drama out the door. It doesn't work that way. I mean, straight up, honest, you can't argue the facts. Then you got to have a fundamental leadership, and you have to build a platform to shut down the friction and pretty much try to stick with the community. Or if you don't, this is what's going to happen during this. It's a fundamental leadership failure to build a platform on manufacturing friction and then blame the community when an involuntary explodes. So in other words, when it comes crumbling down, you can't blame this person, or you can't blame that person, or you can't blame this person. It's you yourself as content promoters. You had an option to literally shut these people out, and you brought them in, whatever the reason is, because they friends with this person or they friends with that person. You guys got to do the background checks, safely, to make sure that they ain't pedophiles, or they ain't, toxic, or, they ain't trying to stir the pot, because that's when, it takes the fun out of it. When people destroys the pot, I've learned this through the real wrestling business. There's two things that makes the wrestling business unique: the brotherhood and respect. If you continually to stir the pot and stir drama and keep throwing people's names under buses and keep, doing this divide and conquer game, you're not respecting nobody. You're being a child. And, it's sad to see that, some of the EFED community, they really don't get, think with common sense. They'd rather just go on with their daily lives. And, I understand that, you can't control people. At the same time, I understand that. But at the same time, you got to have that, knowledge.
That core mentality structure.
Well, not necessarily that, DJ, but you got to have that knowledge to know the ability to when to say, okay, they've done me wrong so many times. Okay, I got to shut this door. I can't open this door back.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, for example,
it's like the one saying I keep hearing over time in the show: adapt or perish.
It's almost like that, DJ, but I'm going to put it in examples that you guys can understand. I don't know how you guys feel about, criminal, like law and order, CSI, NSI, that stuff that they have on USA Network. Works the same way. If you do the crime, eventually the detectives are going to figure it out, and they're going to get smarter with the knowledge and ability they have for over those years busting criminals, just like the CAW community. Those CAW promoters are going to get smart and realize, hey, maybe these guys will see something we're not seeing. But at the same time, going back to the NCIS, they figured out, who was the murderer, who done this crime, who done that crime. But at the same time, with the drama and the toxicity and, burning bridges. You can't have that. You can't burn, keep burning bridges and expect to come back. It don't work out. It's like, Joker, one of my favorite Batman characters of all time, during Marvel, Joker, he's a criminal. He runs the asylum. I mean, you saw what Joker does in Batman. He caused all kinds of chaos. Batman's, the only person to save the day. He's out there fighting, guys like Joker, Penguin, all those bad villain characters trying to save us from evil. Same way with CAW. We got to protect CAW the same way. We can't let, Joker or Penguin try to come in and just dismantle it. We got to set up our structure the right way to where, the walls are enforced. They can't come in. And, if they want to cry about it, then, that's personally on them and not us, because we as CAW promoters and CAW creators are putting a limit structure to the foundation. So our building or our structure does not fall on us to kill us. We are protecting our own mental health and also our physical health by doing so, by putting those barriers, putting those restrictions, by keeping it out, because we are feeling so much better at the end of the day because we did a good deed, and what is good, not only a deed, but also good for the community that don't let those people come in. You got to have your codes and conducts and regulations, and also you got to have your rules enforced, just like, a regular, ecosystem, a regular, place. You take a look at the United States for America, for example. Okay, I'm going to explain this point. Okay, let's say if, we get a president that takes out the law enforcement. I don't know if this is ever going to happen, but don't hold me to this. But I'm saying, for example, okay, so let's say this is the reason why that, everything's coming down. We got a president, he signs a bill, order, a law that says no more police. Okay, do you know that, when you take out the police, that you're going to have a high criminal rate? That's your way of, putting that crime rate low as it comes. But now when you take out the police, which is the, in police and our terminology is basically guys that are trying to stop this stuff from happening. When you take those guys out and you guys frame them for them doing their job and trying to do what's good for the community, then you become the problem yourselves, because you're not even upholding the honor and structure that badge, or what I call in badges, which is CAW, is good for the system of CAW. You guys got to learn that this manufactured chaos. I saw it in a couple of feds. Some of them feds I'm no longer a part of. I pretty much left out. There was a fed that I left probably 2 years ago. I left because of the toxicity. I couldn't stand, people going at each other and pretty much just throwing you under the bus, drama this, drama that. I can't stand that, because at the same time, I'm trying to do what's good for my personal health and what's good for my crew, and trying to protect them not to go to the same thing that I've saw. That as a good leader, you warn those. And what I'm saying by warning is you warn those not to go to there, so they don't become, it's kind of like, in a jungle scenario when you got a lion and it's got a prey. Of course, a lion's always going to go for that prey. Same thing with these people, that's in CAW, that's, causing all kinds of chaos and, just trying to destroy the community. Same people like that are just literally picking us apart because we can't stand up and, do the right thing. The right thing, this is a good quote. I don't know where I got this quote from, but DJ probably could help me with this. But there's actually two quotes, actually. First one is, being real gets you hated. I know where I got that one from. That was from Johnny Cash. It was one of his favorite quotes. But there's another quote that says, when you do right, eventually people are going to hate you because they don't like the right things. So in other words, just because you're doing right, a lot of people ain't going to agree with you.
Agreed with both of those.
You are going to get hated. I'm not saying that, everything's going to be like a fluff and pillow. Everything's going to be good and gravy. But at the same time, you guys got to think, realistically, the right thing is going to cost you. It's going to cost you maybe friends. It's going to cost you maybe something that really and truly, I see for the bigger picture, of course, maybe you don't need to be in there. Sometimes that you guys got to understand from a perspective point that, especially in life, that if something happens, maybe it's for the greater good. Maybe it's because that, higher spiritual power was trying to protect you from going to something that you did not need to be belonging in, is what I'm trying to say. And I think this is, part of the big problems I see in the CAW community, and the fails that I see in the CAW community. They don't have that structure. They don't have the walls. They break down the walls, and then when they don't have that reinforced walls, then they come back to us and wondering what happened. Me and DJ are different people. People has accused me over the years of doing this or doing that, but they don't come to the source. That's the problem with people also that I see in this manufactured chaos. They don't come to the source. They'd rather believe people's words or believe fake screenshots that person didn't say, and they don't really go to the person in general to get the true source. That's the main problem I see as well. They don't get the truth, and they'd rather believe somebody else over the real hard truth that somebody actually said of their own mouth. And pretty much, that's part of the problem why the CAW community is the way it is today, because they don't really want to come to the reliable source, is what I'm trying to say. But we're going to let DJ take it over.
I mean, it's a lot of things that I can really pinpoint on that you said that was absolutely 100% accurate. But also, just to feed off of that, there are some things that I've seen that literally are huge implications of going downhill. I mean, for one, why are you saying everything out in the open to let other e-feds hear your business? If it's closed doors, you should be able to handle things closed doors with those individuals. Don't allow things to go outside of your comfort zone. And then I've noticed that a lot of e-feds that I've been in, these owners like to take things outside of their comfort zone. And you know exactly where I'm going at with this, CJ. That comfort zone is your safety net. Stay within your safety net. If you got certain things that you are concerned about in the CAW community, you can't fault that owner for being that way. You cannot fault that person for standing up for the things he believes in.
The main thing, I agree with you on that, DJ. And, the main thing that I see also is, going back to, what I said about accountability. Accountability does start here. And also about the burning bridges. Sometimes you can't blame people for stuff that you done with your own actions. You have to take accountability for yourselves, and you can't pinpoint it on somebody else. It's what I'm trying to say is, what deeds you do on this life, you got to answer for. And what I'm saying is, if you are being, in this manufactured chaos, trying to destroy what we believe is CAW and, the EFED community, there's people out there that will help you. That's why they got therapists. Go talk to a therapist, get you some help, whether you got mental problems, physical problems, whatever the case may be. I'm not a judge, but I'm just saying in general, get you some help. That's why they, hire these people. That's why they put them, locally, around, cities, to help people, to help them get out of situations that they are in that, they feel like they can't escape from. That's why you got people like that. But at the same time, going back to the thing that DJ was saying is, sometimes you got to lock down the fort, because, you got a lot of people that wants to come in the fort and try to be spies. Sometimes, restrictions are actually a good thing rather than a bad thing, because not only you're protecting yourself as a CAW promoter, but also you're protecting your talent from not getting in with those negative people that probably could influence them to turn bad. So you're protecting your friends, your people you're close to. You're protecting, basically your loved ones, friends, family, whatever the case may be. You're protecting those from those individuals, is what DJ is trying to say. And, DJ made a good point. I'll give DJ all the credit in the world for it, because he's, right on dot, right on topic with this. This absolutely needs to be said here. Take this down for information. Take this down that, sometimes, you need to learn a lot of stuff. Me and DJ knows a lot of stuff. We can help you out if you have the ability to sit down and listen and not be so hard-headed. I'm going to steal DJ's line here about this. A hard head makes a soft ass. So in other words, get that hard head out, and, maybe you can have the ability to learn and have that knowledge to potentially grow of your own Fed or your own call, whatever the case may be. But at the same time, you got to, learn to listen and learn to, accept truth. That's the bottom line of this. But if you want to add on to that, DJ, you're more than welcome to, brother.
Like, going off of that narrative alone, I mean, accepting truth is part of the battle that we have to have here. That truth can ultimately lead to a better EFED environment. That same EFED environment that you stand on, it has adapted, it has grown, it has evolved into something far more better than old school laws. Let's be real here. We have pushed this thing, no matter for in the 26, to being more in depth with what we do. But also we're taking out the narrative of having these individuals that are causing the drama, pedophilia, you name it, out of the equation to make it fun and safe for all of us. If you don't see that as a primary focal point coming in and you're starting on 26, I don't know what to say to you. Come talk to these DFED owners that are doing it now. And literally you can probably adapt to some things that you see from them and implement their own things in. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but at the same time, just work with us. We all have a system here. We're all evolving the door. We're all trying to bring product people to our product. At the same time, we also want partners that's going to listen and agree or disagree on whatever we see fit to help the EFED community grow. We're not hard. We're not harsh. We're not hard. We're easy to talk to.
Now, if we are done with this, first thing that, question we got up, I got another one here.
But let's move on to the next phase.
I mean, if you guys are ready for the next phase, comment in the words of Stone Cold, hell yeah, in the chat. But anyways, moving forward from this, why essential safeguard protecting creators, promoters, and communities? Why this is essential. This is the reason why that we are, doing this. And DJ, you got the floor. Why this should be an essential, for not only CAW creators but also promoters as well. You got the floor, DJ.
For one, this is like 2 or 3 parts that I'm gonna go into there. Part 1, protecting yourself, your creations, and your likeness is essential. You have thieves out here that like to steal your ideas, put your vision on their show, so on and so forth, yada, yada. If you're not protecting your environment, then as a creator, then what are you protecting in the first place? Because the moment you put your call up on CC, it kind of feels like, oh, I ain't had this show wanting to get my character on there. That's what happens. You allow yourself to be manipulated by uploading your call, thinking that it's going to a show that you want to go to. Sometimes you got to check where you're going. If the owner hasn't grabbed it, take it down until he's ready to grab it. Number two in this whole environment, this goes into the EFED situation. Knowing how to get the right people for your roster. As an owner, you have to be mindful of who you are inviting to your roster. You got to do thorough checks like we said in part one. You have to be more mindful and appreciative of who you are bringing on your roster. Because if you're not mindful and appreciative of who you're bringing on your roster, you're doomed for failure before you even started. Appreciate everything that is being given in call. That is the third and final thing I'm going to say, because if you're not appreciative for the friends and commitment that is in call, then why are you in here to begin with? And I'll let CJ go on from there.
Now, since DJ answered this, I'm going to go in full depth. And I hope you guys got, like I said, got your popcorn ready. And we're going to take in full details on what I think, protecting creators, promoters, communities is essential safeguards for not only you as a CAW promoter and also, as talent, being behind that CAW promoter for their shows. And the most important thing is a strict safeguard against predators and minors. Non-negotiable boundaries. In digital gaming communities involving minors and adults, promoters must maintain strict, uncompromising age verification and moderation policies. So in other words, if they're not 18 and above, don't invite them to the chats, because we know some people that are predators in the CAW community, that is pedophiles, that is going out there using people's fake accounts for their own good and trying to destroy other people's CAW success because they got caught being a pedophile, or they, don't want to come out and say they are the pedophile. And to me, it just makes them look bad in the process, because, if you're caught up in the act, you can't run or hide from it, especially when there's evidence saying that you do this. And secondly, getting to the context here of why it needs to be a zero tolerance thing for online predators is failing to enforce rigged channel guidelines opens your door to predatory behavior. True community management prioritize the safety of young fans and members over edgy content and open door policies. So in other words, you need to have your structure set on these policies, because what if it happens in your chat or it happens on your YouTube channel, and then, law enforcement get involved? Just because you're not in it, guess what? There's a terminology in law that they use today, guilty by association, which means just because you didn't do it, now you're guilty because you didn't put a stop to it when you should have. See where I'm getting at? You need to check yourself or you wreck yourself. Ice Cube says it best. Now, I see your comments, Nixon. I'm trying to get into something. I will respond back to it as soon as I'm done. I promise. But getting back to the second thing that I see, rejecting toxic agendas and social brainwashing, protecting hobbies. And then also, do not let toxicity dictate your show. We're going to get into protecting hobbies first. EFED Space exists as a creative outlet to place and enjoy simulation wrestling. When bad actors manipulate channels to push personal agendas, target individuals, or hijack platforms to harass, promoters must shut it down instantly. Did you catch that last part? I hope everybody did, because it says promoters must shut that down instantly. That means if you're not shutting it down instantly, you just because you ain't doing it, now you become the problem. That's where you need to put your foot down and say, you know what, I don't want no pedophiles on my show. Put your foot down, and if somebody gets pissed about it, let them. That's when you know that they are guilty by association, because they can't stand up to the real facts. Now, getting on to do not let toxicity dictate your show. Bad actors control the narrative or dictate your match card out for the fear of backlash isn't open manalist. It's handed the keys to your community over the loudest, most toxic voices in the room. Now, what it means by that is, if you have a, let's say, for example, you have a pedophile in your chats and he is an active wrestler and you don't know about this, and he's influenced others, or he's getting to other people's families, which is little kids, then there's the problem right there. Because now, you know, just because you didn't know about it first, you should have done a background check. You know, and what I mean by a background check is this: you should have checked to see if he was a sex offender or a registered sex offender. You know, there's ways to go on about it. You can go to his friends, ask them. If that don't work, his enemies. You know, I'm pretty sure he's got, you know, he or she's got enemies somewhere that will pretty much expose the true narrative right to your face to let you know, hey, stay away from this person, or hey, stay away from this toxicity, or stay away from this predator. This is not a good person. This is what we need to do as a community. Communication is key. We need to let everybody else know that, hey, this is a bad person. Do not let him in. Hey, this is a bad person. Do not let him join. And if you cannot see the bigger picture, what I'm getting at, you will fall for this. And trust me when I say this, it will be guilty by association. And when it happens, don't come crying back to us saying, you know,
don't fall for the trap.
Not only that, but, you know, don't come crying back to us saying, oh, you know, you all pinpoint this on. No, we didn't pinpoint it on you. We told you exactly what was going to happen. You didn't listen. Now you face what we call real life scenarios that you could have protected yourself from by doing these restrictions, doing these safe restrict guidelines to not only help you as a creator, but a YouTube content creator, and so on. You got to learn when to say yes, when to say no, and, you know, when to safely protect, you know, not only your family, you know, maybe loved ones that are minors, that are kids, but also at the same time, you got to protect others. You got to think about others. There's other people, families that could be involved by this predator, by this sex offender, by this damn pedophile, that, you know, we got to put the word out and, you know, shut this person down and put the truth on them. You know, truth hurts. And that's the main thing of the thing here. Now, going back on another topic here that I feel like that is most important is the physical and mental health. And this is, you know, crucial. You know, I kind of feel like that this is really important to a human being behind calling and being a promoter, and also for the community. You know, physical and mental health is real, guys. That is a real thing that, you know, you guys must accept. You can push it too far on somebody and they can go to a mental state, you know, mental mindset, and it could become mental health. That means they could, you know, literally hurt themselves, you know, whatever they do. And then you could be really in some serious trouble over that. You know, Thea Hale, one of my favorite NXT wrestlers, you know, she said, you know, the most iconic professional thing to say as a wrestler. As a human being, think about what you type over the internet. That there's reasons why Thea Hill said that, is because what you say on the internet might affect somebody with mental health, and it may cause them to do something that could put you in jail. Maybe not being a pedophile, but at the same time, maybe, you know, maybe they take their life or whatever the case may be. And you are pretty much are going to be charged with, help me out, DJ. What is it called? Um, but anyways, you guys know where I'm getting at. I can't think of the law terminology for it.
Me neither. I was trying to think exactly where you were going with it, but hey.
But anyways, it's the same thing by guilty by association. You know, if they actually done that harm to them, and you said something online and not protecting, you know, like I said, this goes back to essential safeguards, protecting creators, promoters, and communities. If you said something, you know, negative to them that may have hurt them, then boy, you know, you're going to get backlash. You know, if you know they're, you know, that person's family decides to take it to the law, boy, you're going to get backlash from, you know, local law enforcement, maybe federal, you know, depending on, you know, the cases may vary. But I'm just saying, you know, you got to protect yourself when it comes down to this EFED community stuff. You got to protect yourself, not as a CAW creator, but a promoter, and also the community. There's people that does have mental health. You know, that's the real life. You know, Thea Hill, like I said, smart girl for saying this. Think about what you post on the internet, because it may come back and bite you. So, you know, be smart when you're posting stuff on the internet, guys. It is crucial. You know, don't say something that you may have to take back later. Only thing I'm saying on that topic, you know, going back to the physical and mental health first, you know, there's creator burnout is real, which means running shows, editing match cards, and managing rosters takes dozens of hours a week. Trying to manage real life drama on top of that destroys your mental well-being. So in other words, you know, when you got that drama, and I'm not talking about the drama in wrestling. The drama in wrestling is a different story when you're doing storylines. I'm talking about when it becomes personal and it becomes real heated, that it's not a wrestling drama show that you see like on WWE, NWA type. It becomes more personal than drama related. That's when it becomes a problem. Now, also, you know, there's boundaries equal longevity, which is establishing clear restrictions on who can participate in your space isn't gatekeeping. It's an essential form of self-care and mental protection on the host and the roster, CAW creator, and CAW. Just think about that before you type things to people like that. They're, you know, like...
It's another thing to think before you react.
Here's the thing that I notice about a lot of people. A lot of people, they don't take words to their own accountability. And what I mean by that is, and I'm going to try to explain that a little bit better. So, you know, it's just like saying on the internet, something stupid, like, you know, for example, I'm going to use DJ. That'd be like me, you know, if DJ has mental health, that'd be like me saying, oh, do you know DJ is so stupid he can't even get this right. You know, in DJ, you know, DJ may take that the wrong way and say, look, he attacked my, you know, learning disability or disability of some sort that keeps him from doing things that some people can't do. That's what I'm saying is, you know, goes back to watch what you're saying over the internet. You can get in trouble over that. So, you know, be careful for what you type, because, you know, some people may take it to a whole concept and then it becomes to where it comes to what I call law enforcement, which means now you're going to be talking to police, lawyers, which you should have avoided that by just not typing what you said on the internet or done something to save yourself. That's what I'm trying to say here. Now we get it on to another thing. And I think this is the most important, and I'm going to let DJ go to this one because I think DJ has got a lot to say on this topic, because I'm not going to spend much time on that topic. But leading by example in the face of bad faith habit. This right here is so crucial, and so, you know, me and DJ both can give you knowledge on this. I really think that a lot of people, a lot of CAW creators does not have that leading by example part down right. And DJ, if you want the floor on this, you know, I'm going to give you a baseball bat. Just don't destroy my mic, because I'm going to just knock the home run out of it. And when you knock the home run all the way to Ron Storm so he can go get his LaFufu donuts. Just put that ball donuts.
But I'll try my best. But getting back on point here, Now, I'm going to break this down in 3 to 4 easy steps for y'all, so y'all understand. Step number 1, you have to be more mindful of who you are as a CAW promoter and owner. Sometimes you have to set guidelines and boundaries for your own self-evaluation when going into CAW. You can't go into CAW thinking, oh, I have all the answers and all the questions in front of me, and just magically throw together a show and then think you're going to get a roster automatically. Nah, this takes time and effort, because without self-accountability and knowing what you want for your roster, that ends up being part of the primary solution. Number 2, if you're going to go after your roster, don't go poaching people from these well-known e-feds and thinking that you're going to have accountability within your roster. No. What you're getting is, you're getting people that have been toxic, narrative-minded people and all out for themselves. Because you can't have everybody out for themselves on your roster. You got to have people that you can work with, people that you can know in your own mind that's going to be accountable when they need to step up. And third and foremost, get around some owners that's going to help you more, not just for self reasons, but give you insight and appreciation. Some owners don't value that, and I get it. But you got some people that's going to be there for you as a friend. That self-evaluation process is the number one thing I say is going to help you in the long run. You can't have a negative-minded approach coming in the CAW. Because if you have a negative-minded approach coming in the CAW, then, hey, it's self-explanatory what happens next. But on top of all that, you got to be more appreciative for what's being given to you. Whether it's somebody giving you championships created by themselves, or you got somebody that's willing to help you out with bringing people to your roster, X, Y, and Z. Self-evaluation for yourself is the number one priority in CAW. But I'll give the floor to CJ so he can knock it out the park as well.
Now, getting on this example, in the face of bad faith hate, first of all, I'm going to say you cannot lead by an example when critics mistakes necessarily community boundaries for restrictions. When a leader sets guidelines to shield their community from predatory behavior, toxicity, harassment, bad actors will always label those rules controlling or restrictive. And what I'm trying to explain that better. You can't protect somebody, especially if they've been, a pedophile, and try to shield them from what they done. I mean, you got to use good judgment about this also. I completely understand about good judgment, but at the same time, if they caught being a pedophile, you got to let them go on the rope. You can't be Captain Save-A-Ho. DJ Chaotic is 100% right about that. You can't save somebody that done the deed. And going back on this, rules don't restrict creativity. They clear out noise. So actually creativity can happen in a safe environment. The reason why we have rules and restrictions is we want a safe environment, not only for the CAW creators, but also the CAW promoters and everybody that's in the companies within. So we don't have the drama, the predatory behavior, which is, the pedophiles, all of that stuff in with our companies because we don't want that around us. You know, we don't want to be labeled as guilty by association. So that's the reason why we do that. It ain't because we set a restriction or we just have grudges. It's because we set a wall that cannot be knocked down because we was smart enough to build it by a better structure. You know, you guys got to think about a little bit of construction terms, and also you guys got to realize constructive feedback. There's a lot of content creators and content promoters that can't handle constructive criticism. DJ's pointed that out so many times. Constructive criticism they can't take. It's like when you try to go to them, it's like they can't literally bring out. They can't accept it. It's like it's like a bad taste in their mouth when you give them constructive criticism. You know, same way by leading by example. If you can't accept somebody telling you the truth and what needs to be done, and you don't listen to them, you're not leading by example. You're showing what you've tried to say that you do, and then you fall back on your word. Pretty much how that sums that portion up. Now, we're going to get down to another topic here. And I feel like this is going to be an important topic. Disruption versus real life safety and mental health. This is a very good topic as well to talk about. And DJ, I'm going to let you, do like the give examples of each versus a disruption versus real life safety and mental health. And then I'll do the same and also explain and give details on why this isn't important.
Here, let's just put the health side of things in perspective here. Before I get into the other aspect of it. The health side of things. Knowing how to stay calm under pressure. There are certain times in EVERTHING where we have so much pressure on us, gathering calls from updates and getting situations resolved between creators. All that plays a very valuable part in your health. Sometimes if you don't see a show on a certain date, that's because we are mentally taking a day off to make sure everything is all accurate and good. Sometimes we take that day off to say we need to break away from the CAW community to evaluate ourselves. This is a vital necessity piece that helps most creators ease the tension. And I know a lot of creators would agree with that because we need that mental break to evaluate ourselves in that moment. Another thing to this is the dramas in most EVERTHINGs, no matter if it's yours or you're in a show chat, it all adds up to you taking a break from certain chats. Don't think that we're ignoring you or leaving you high and dry. No. We need that time. Like, we see your message, don't get me wrong. But at that same time, we're mentally easing down from everything that we have to do as a creator. Don't take this as he's ignoring me situation. No. It's more for us than it is for you. Take these little steps into consideration because these are lifesavers for you to be mentally prepared. You know, there's other things that I can really get into that would hinder a lot of things, and it's more in that technical range. Like, there's a reason why, but the downhill spiral is you can cause some of this yourself. And that's another part to this whole thing. You could be the disruption as well. All these disruptions that come in play. Oh, drama in your chat, to X, Y, and Z IRL situation coming in play. I mean, these are things that literally you should be more evaluate yourself versus bringing them into the EFED community. Everything in IRL should be outside handled on your own accord. Don't bring IRL shit into EFED chats and stirring the pot. I know CJ would agree with that, and as many other owners would agree with it as well. Do not bring your IRL drama into an EFED chat. But I'll leave it at that. CJ, the stage is yours.
Now, going back to the disruption versus real life safety and mental health, the disruption, very crucial. It's not important to the mental health, but I'm gonna get an example is disruption. Going in people's chat, causing hate speech, or blaming them for something. That is major key factors. Accusing people of stuff. Another thing would be just not having your facts in a row and going out here and saying, "Oh, this person," for example, and I named DJ in this, that's like going around, me going around to other Fed owners, be like, "Oh, DJ's bullying me, his whole crew's bullying me." Okay, first of all, sometimes you gotta set a disruption versus real life safety, and this is where a lot of people is going to disagree to agree on this topic, but here's the reason why I feel like this is important. If you are causing drama just because you are hating on somebody that's doing better than you, then maybe in all reality is, there's a terminology for this, that you have to realize that not everybody is going to be supportive of you. Not everybody is going to hold your hand during this CAW community. Not everybody is going to be your friend, but at the same time, you got to realize that when you talk bad about people and accuse them of stuff. For example, I use DJ, being a bully, and his friends being a bully. When you accuse them of that, how do you think they are going to handle the situation? They're going to look at you, be like, "Okay, this guy literally lied on me because I didn't do nothing to him, and now he's going to tell people that I've done this." And then it's going to, the real life effect comes into this. DJ and his friends are going to get in the group chat. They're going to talk about you and be like, "Look, we know you didn't do anything, DJ, to this person. And, he's saying this, and this, and they got screenshot evidence on you starting the drama." It's going to catch up with you in the long run because you're just keep on stirring the pot when somebody else didn't say nothing about you. That's the real life safety with that, because there's some people that just don't know when to keep their mouth shut and keep on stirring the pot when, you just need to let everything just drop out and shut your mouth to an extent, because there's a lot of people that really and truly that really made me question about them. I could get in topics. I could name these people right off the bat, but at the same time, would I stoop to their level? No, because I'm better than them. And, when you notice you're better than somebody and you notice that, you don't have time to call them out, then, it goes to show you that your age is more mature than your IQ level. And that's when it's going to hit at home. But getting back to the, real life safety and mental health over the disruption, the real life safety, is a key factor because it also protects the mental health. It also protects, people from getting targeted, from getting, accused of stuff that they didn't do, but also at the same time, it protects you of your own personal peace. And what I mean by personal peace is that it protects you not only through getting, for example, it may be, going back to DJ scenario, it may be, let's say if I, made a chat and named all the people that hated DJ and, wanted to stir the pot, I could say, oh, did you know DJ is this, this, and this? And, especially, with the fake accounts, it's easily done. You could make people think that they said it when they really didn't. But I'm saying at the same time, you got to think on the precautions of what's going to happen when you get caught up in your act. Because not only you may destroying somebody's mental health, but also when they find it out, you're pretty much going to be blocked from talking to them, blocked from ever even getting back with them, or, not really with them like relationship, but, as a friend wise, talking to them as friends, you're never going to get that friendship back because that person that you put under the bus or you accused of is going to look at you and like, man, I should have never trusted him. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is watch what you say. It goes back to what I said before. Watch what you say on the internet because you may do something that you may never get your friend back over. Huge, crucial thing. Now, moving on to the next one, and I'm going to move on to this one. The host guest question: what is the line between pushing creative boundaries and sacrificing the mental health well-being of the creators putting on the show? DJ, I'll let you have first cracks at this question.
Here's the thing with that right here. And I'm going to break this down in a way that everybody can understand and know. When we have that scenario in play, you have your set match card already in motion, but then you got creators who feel like, oh, they think they have a better match in mind, but don't get me wrong, will accept constructive criticism if necessary. But at the same time, at the time when doing the show, that breakdown phase always happens every time. This is why shows take X amount of time to build a good storyline show, regardless of if his championships involve little incidences and disputes, whether we got to record a little something for a little backstage segment, whatever the case may be. These are things that gets put into the equation. Some people, they don't have all the necessary equipment to do a good, successful show. Don't get me wrong, I'm one of them. Am I going to be faulted for it? No. At the same time, you have to work with your owner instead of going against your owner. Now, what I mean by that is working against your owner is, oh, you have X, Y, and Z this, and you want title this, X title this, and X title that. Nah. That literally is a part of the creative process, but you're also diminishing what this owner is trying to build. Trust me. For example, if I use CJ and his company to say, oh, I don't think X, Y, and Z person should be in that situation, let's put them in this situation to see if they can elevate up to that situation. That's either going to help or that's going to diminish what he's trying to build with said character. Sometimes you got to be more mindful with what you bring to these creators. I'm not saying everything is going to work in your favor, but if you got a storyline of interest, come to the creator, come to the owner, let's talk this out, and let's see how we can arrange it in play for what I'm working on. Other than that, it's like, don't put too much pressure on creators. I mean, CJ is a perfect example of an excellent creator that has a lot of creativity when it comes down to it. But don't add your creativity on top of his creativity. That kind of disrupts the foundation of what he's trying to build. You can't stack your ideas and his ideas and try to combine them in one shot. No. Be mindful of what thoughts and ideas you bring to these creators. And I'll just leave it at that.
Now, going back on that part, that question, what's the line between pushing creative boundaries and sacrificing the mental health of creators putting on the show? The difference is pushing creative boundaries plus the mental well-being of creators putting on the show is, is simple. Know your product, know the craft. Also, know your talent's chemistry. So what I mean by this is if you know your talent's chemistry, if you know a guy that's a good promo artist, that is a good PvP guy that can take a match and, help a guy that's not good, that match will be good because they can work that whole match through without putting, two guys that don't know nothing. You see my examples, you got to learn on the chemistry part and how good they can work together to make that product stand out for not only you as the CAW promoter, but also the CAW creator. And I think, another thing, the line between pushing creative boundaries and sacrificing mental health is what DJ said. I have to agree with him. If somebody's got an ideal that they're using for their show, don't take it. Come up with your own ideals. Come up with your own, hell, I'm going to share this out because J-Kid made a good point. So getting back on topic, because I'm not going to get much into that topic in the chat. I'll let them two handle their disputes because, they got to write their own opinions, but I'm just going to share that out there. But anyways, getting back into the thing, what I was going to say, here's why I think that this is crucial. And before we move on,
TJ got to make a quick phone call.
All right, sounds good. So going back to, the question I'm going to bring out, and this is actually true statement of the law. So the danger of open door policies. I'm going to explain why that this is not the best ideal to bring somebody that is a pedophile supporter, that is targeting people and, trying to, what I'm trying to say is sugarcoat something and not owning up to what they're saying with their actions. The biggest problem about the open door policies, the danger of this, you got to take in consideration, we're going to break it down in discussions. everyone welcome sounds good in theory, but a complete unvetted outdoor policy allows toxic individuals, banned users, or bad actors bypass accountability using alternate accounts or fake personas. This is true. And the reason why it's true is because we're going to set real world EFED examples. Okay. Real world EFED examples would be, like a promo that somebody done on their show and just don't even take accountability of that promo, that it was a good promo, but they don't take accountability of it. Then they go around and just absolutely just say, oh yeah, by the way, moving on to that promo, I like this better. Here's the bad part about the whole thing with the danger of open door policies. When you are allowing yourself to go back into a company that does not value or appreciate you for your hard work with your creative mindset that you've done, that you've put that promo and it took you, maybe 30 minutes to an hour to 2 hours to write to get it into that show, and they use that promo like it is a nothing to them, that's the danger of open door policies. You're allowing yourself to be a part of something that you feel like you're not entitled to, or you feel like you're not welcomed into. And to me, there's a reason why that I don't go back to those companies. There's a reason why that I'm in newer companies. There's a reason why that I'm maintaining my own personal peace. There's a reason why that I'm moving forward than instead of moving backwards. Moving forward means I'm moving forward and not looking back on my past. And the main thing is, I'm gonna give the live chat a question here. I want you guys to answer this truthfully in the chat. So I hope you guys are ready, because I'm about ready to send the bomb here in the chat. This is a live chat question. Just send in the chat. What would you rather join, an EFED show that lets everyone in anyone in instantly, or one that vets its members first? You guys can comment that in the chat. But for that, we're going to be talking about this: spotting agendas and personal brainwashing. This is a major key factor in this talk show, because this right here, I mean, this hits more home runs than probably what half of the major league one of my favorite Major League Baseball players has ever done in his career. The toxic agendas and personal brainwashing. There is a boundary that you just have to not let people overcross. And what I mean by that is the breakdown that I'm going to say, and I'm trying to get this out in words. I'm trying to think in words, so bear with me for a moment, is the EFEDs are built for creative wrestling call entertainment, not for individuals to wage personal vendettas or push toxic social agendas. Promoters must shut down attempts to turn your match card or promos into a personal attack platforms. The biggest thing that I've seen with this is there's a lot of people that when I do a show, especially when I do a show, they somehow go find my character just to make them look like they, the big bucks. Because I've said this once, and not only once, but twice, maybe 3 times already, that I did not want my call to be on their show. And to me, that's a personal attack already, because I told you that I didn't want to be on your show, so you need to respect. You see, that's the problem with the EFED call community. They don't respect anything. If you was in the real business and you told me that, hey, I got to be on a show, or you're demanding me to be on a show, especially if you called me on my real number, I would chew your ass out like that. getting back on this personal brainwashing, there's a lot of topics. A lot of topics include, watching people's show just to try to, use it to your agendas because you can't come up with something better. I'm not saying no names. I'm spitting facts. There's a lot of people that does that. A lot of people that use people's friends against them because they want to try to associate themselves with these pedophiles that makes fake accounts about me, especially that they allow them into their fed because they can't get nobody else, because it goes back to what I said before in the previous podcast about burning bridges and accountability. It goes back to those two topics. If you've not listened to those two topics, I suggest go back to the other podcast, listen, take information down, and not be butthurt by it. I'm trying to get you knowledgeable to where you're understanding things more better than making things into toxic personal agendas is what I'm trying to say. Now, I'm going to bring up this also because I feel like that this is 100%. I saw this 100%. So we're going to go with the another thing here, because I've done what I had to say about the toxic agendas and personal brainwashing. Now we get on rise above competitor hate. There's a lot of people in the CAW community that has this competitor hate. I personally feel that, especially, when your channel grows and they are seeing that you do better than them, they try to come in and try to destroy you as an individual and try to put you down. And, I hate to do this, but, Kevin Impact's right about this. Let me go back and right here. Personal examples about rising above competition hate. This is what they do. Bashing us and pretty much being fake. I mean, Kevin Impact pretty much stated that obvious. You have to go behind the channels to do so. Why? Because you feel like that you need to be in charge of the show. You think that you can do better than what we do, or you need to be in power and you can't get that power because maybe you squashed friendships that meant something to you, that he's gave you like 3 chances. You kind of like striked out all 3. And, if we was playing the game of baseball, everybody knows the game of baseball. You got 3 strikes, you're out. You swung 3 of those, you're off that home base. You didn't hit that home run. Just like in real life, going back to a rise above competitor hate, there's a lot of competitor hate that hates me to day one. Not going to name no names, but they know who they are. They come to my channel because they can't really get enough of the truth. And the truth is, they are so attached as a fan of mine that it becomes to what DJ said, a hard head makes a soft ass. They're so hard-headed that they can't see clearly, that they can't, no, I take that back. They can't see clearly. They don't want to see clearly. Let me put that in the agendas as it needs to be said. Now, we're going to get into the last topic here, but also I'm going to do the live chat question with this. You guys express how you want to feel on that. Live chat thing. And even if you guys are commenting in the live chat rather than commenting, on, the chat, when we go off air, feel free to answer those questions. We're not going to shut you off. Feel free to answer those. If you feel like that somebody is going against you, or bullying you, feel free to speak out about it. Be a grown man. You know, that's what needs to come out. That's why I invented this podcast. It's about the truth. It's about owning up, to be accountable for what you've done. You can't hide from the truth. Truth's eventually going to find you out. Real talk. Being real gets you hated. That's the reason why we have a bond here. We got people that's being real, and now we're getting hated for it because we know our boundaries, and we know exactly that when we speak truth, truth is more higher than their IQ level and their maturity. I'm just speaking facts. Going to the last thing here. I just saw this in the chat. And I'm going to hit this last one up. Yep. I definitely agree with you, Kevin Impact, on that. We're going to go for the last one here. Accountability at top. I've talked about accountability, I think, on episode 2 of Everything CAW. But this is the main key factor that I think that everybody needs to understand and learn about. Because, you know, if you can't take accountability for your actions, how can you regain friendships and trust and broken bridges if you're not taking that accountability and not owning up to something? And going back to that, you know, promoters aren't infallible. True leaders require owning up to production mistakes, booking errors, miscommunication, correcting them publicly. Notice I said that. Correcting them publicly. So if you got an issue that you want to address, instead of going to a Facebook Messenger chat, bring your little carcasses in this chat. Address them publicly. There's a live chat. There's people that's willing to debate and prove you wrong. You want to stand up to the truth cause? Here's your chance. Don't go behind a messenger chat. Don't go behind, you know, people's back. Right here, I'm giving you a golden opportunity. But if you can't do that, then it shows exactly what I've tried to get at with this Everything CAW podcast. You're not taking accountability. You're burning bridges. You are causing what I call manufactured chaos that could be prevented if you own up to your accountability, quit burning the bridge, and most importantly, it goes back to what I said about accountability starts here. And this is accountability to the top. So I'm not going to get much in detail with those three, but I'm going to get on to this accountability at top thing. So now, the accountability at top. The 5 pillars of the promoter accountability. So we're going to get into these 5 right here. I hope you guys are ready. We're going to start with the 5th one here. Accountability at top. I'm going to scroll this as my ticketer here, so bear with me. The first one is ownership over excuses. This is a major topic, and this is the reason why that I say this a lot. Ownership over excuses, and the reason why this is important. When a stream fails, a match glitches, or graphics has a typo, the host fire instinct can dictate the entire culture of the channel. Might even shift to WWE 2K servers, video editors, or roster members, damage authorities. True accountability means accepting as the showrunner, the buck stops with you. Detailed scenarios. A pay-per-view streams crashes 20 minutes and due unstable bit rate. 2 things that you can do as a leader. You can have a weak leadership. I've noticed a lot of people that is in the CAW community that has this. That is, the promoter goes on social media, rants about YouTube, blames the internet provider, and snaps at the chat moderators for not handling the panic. That's a weak leadership. That would be what we call a weak leader that does not need to be in call. The accountable leader would immediately post, the crash was on our end. We're taking 15 minutes to adjust our stream settings, render the mismatch, and we will be back at 8:30 p.m. Thank you for your patience. That's how you fix yourself as a leader for a weak leader versus accountable leader. Notice the two difference. I'm going to get on to another thing that I've seen that now we go into the transparency and booking and magic logic. Here's a number 4 here on the list. So I'll give you a number 4 on the list. We're going to move to there. Promoters who change the rules on the fly, quietly strips titles without explanation, or for favor personal friends, destroy locker room morale. Accountability requires clear communication regarding why creative or administrative decisions are made. A fan favorite wrestler gets pulled from a championship match right before a big show. Here's where we go back to being a weak leader versus accountable leader. We're going to start with the weak leader. Weak leader would be, the promoter ignores the question in the server, deletes comments without asking about change, and pretends nothing happened. Now we go to accountable leader. The promoter releases a quick administrative note due to a missed promo deadline outlined in Section 3 of our rules. A talent A was replaced for this card. We value fairness for everyone who submitted on time. That is a fair leader. That is an accountable leader. They be accountable for their booking logic, match logic, and also, right before that, their ownership over excuses. That's how you can tell the difference. Now, we're going to go to omitting personal bias and correcting it. Oh, boy, this is going to be a damn good one. You might as well get your popcorn for this one because here's the next one on the thing. Every promoter has a favorite wrestler, match type, or storylines. However, letting personal bias dictate title reigns or shows create reassessment. Accountable leaders regularly audit their own booking to ensure every dedicated creator gets a fair shot. Detailed scenario. A promoter realizes they've been booking their own personal call in the main event for 6 consecutive pay-per-views while ignoring top performer roster submissions. So here's where we go to the weak leadership accountability. Like I said, we're going to start for the weak. Weak leadership is defending the booking by saying, it's my channel, I book who I want in the main event. That's a weak leader. And I'm sorry to where this is going, but that is something that you will say, Ray. I'm sorry for getting on that point, but that is something that you would say as a weak leader, saying it's my channel, I book who I want in the main event. That'd be something you say. I'm not taking no sides, but seeing what I put in this for my podcast, this is definitely going to hit your scenario on this. So I hope you're paying attention. I'm not trying to attack you. I'm trying to make you better in calls. So you need to listen. Now, accountable leader, stepping back, putting the title on a deserving community member and shifting their personal character into supporting non-title role to let others shine. Here's the thing that I'm going to say. The difference between a weak leader and accountable leader is 2 things. 1, accountable leaders always step back. They step back and take time to correct things. Second thing that I'm going to say is a weak leader, they don't step back. This is a good thing about a weak leader, that it says, it's my channel, I book who I want in the main event. That's the attitude they have. They don't care. you go to them and say, I put on this promo, I put everything, and I'm still not getting where I am. And, the thing is about a weak leader is they stick to people that it's never really earned anything. They've hold on to power and used or manipulate that person to believe that they are their friend, which they are not. I'm going to say that right now. Now, moving on with this podcast, because I ain't got much time to getting much detail with that. Going to the financial assets and integrity. This would be, I think, the second one. So we're going to get into the if a channel accepts community supports, whether community support, whether through YouTube membership, Twitch subs, Patreon, or any of the call text or logos, the promoter must be entirely accountable for how those resources are acknowledged and used. Detailed scenario: a community member must spend 10 hours creating a custom arena and championship belt for a show. Going back to a weak leader versus accountable leader. Weak leader uses the assets on air without credit or claiming credit for the graphic work. Know a lot of people that does that. Moving forward, accountable leadership, highlighting the creator on air, putting their links in the video description, and publicly thanking them at the start of the broadcast. Notice how I am accountable every time I go live on a podcast, thanking Kevin Impact. That's how you can tell accountable leader. Thanking those that's been there supporting you, that's been there behind your back, thick and thin, and being a true friend and supporter of the product and of the brand. That's what accountable leader does. Now, and this right here, I definitely say that this will be the number one thing that needs to be talked about, and I'm going to put this right in with the program here. No one wins a step down or delegate authority. This right here is one of the most influential and one of the most important topics out of those 5 of accountability at top. And, the ultimate test of accountability is recognized when you have no longer the time or energy or mental health to lead. Passing the head booking or editing dues to a trusted partner is better than letting a brand crumble under bad management. A promoter gets a new real-life job with heavy hours. Instead of ghosting the community or letting quality plummet, they trust a co-host as an interim header bookie to keep the product strong. The question is for that I'm going to put in this thing for myself. Also, I got a live chat. You guys can actually, answer this too. I'm going to put it in live chat here, so bear with me. So, if a show host gets too busy in real life, would you prefer they hand the show over to a team or put the federation on pause? Yeah, I think he had to step out with the call right now, Kevin Impact. There's some reasons. I think he's supposed to be back in here shortly. I don't know, but he had to step out with the call. So going back to this. So going back to this stepping down, delegation and stepping down, weak versus accountable leader. The weak leader will refuse to admit they are overwhelmed. They take 100% of their editing, booking, graphic, and streaming while real life suffers. They deliver late episodes, broken match renders, and missed streams, blaming work or family, but refusing to let anyone else help them. Definitely a weak leader there in that category. Accountable leader recognizes that real life comes first, that one person cannot do everything forever. The open audit their schedule, identify where production is stalling, and proactively brings in trust, co-host, editors, and bookers to share the workload before the product suffers. Now, here's the community trust of a weak leader versus accountable leader. Hoards authority out of paranoia and ego. That's for a weak leader. A accountable leader builds a reliable team with trust with the responsibilities. Now, there is a thing here that says long-term vision that I think this is crucial too. Channel dies in the moment the promoter gets busy, which is definitely a weak leader. And then, accountable leader on that would be brand survives and thrives because system and teams are in place. I can't wait to see if they actually have that song in, because I'll probably do the same thing you're doing, Kevin Impact. Download Gangrel and have that a part of the show. So the last question we're going to do before I get off air with this, because I spent almost an hour and 30 minutes, is this question in the chat that I'm sending. We've all seen promoters burn themselves out trying to control every single graphic, match, and rule, only to get angry at the fans when the show drops late. Why do weak leaders choose to burn their own show out of the ground of ego instead of trusting a team to help them keep it alive? You guys comment in the chat. I mean, if you guys want to, it's up to you guys in the chat. If you guys want to put what you guys done in past experiences, it's more out there for you to do. You guys got a personal freedom that is the right to free speech and the right to your own opinion. So go ahead and put that in the chat. But to answer the question that is crucial, that I found that I'm going to answer right off the bat before I in the show, is why do so many promoters confuse delegating tasks with a giving up control on their show? There's many topics to this. There's many things that I could say. One of those is why they give up on their show is because they let bad people in. That's one reason. Like pedophiles. They let people that, you have, for example, you have people that warn people about somebody and they didn't listen, and, they back to square one. That's one example. I'm not saying no names, but example wise, they could give up on a show because they had the talent and they didn't have the necessarily structured knowledge to oversee and put the storylines to their own creative use without using somebody else's creativity. That is another thing that I've noticed. Another thing I noticed also that, and the biggest thing that I've seen in CAW is the reason why they give up control on their show is they don't have I'm trying to get this out in words, so bear with me. They don't have the the ground set they don't have the ground set to put it in. They don't have the, well, I'm going to put it in words that, you know, is that I'm going to say, since I can't put it in words that I want to try to think of it as. They don't have the balls to literally put their foot down and tell these people no. That's the main thing. But I want to thank everybody that has listened to this, took the information in, and for the people that's, you know, went in other chats and talked about us like dogs. You're just mad because the truth got out, the truth got exposed. And that's the only thing you do. Cry about everything. And that's the legacy you want to leave. That's the legacy that you leave. But the legacy I want to leave in CAW is simple. Better in myself, become better than any CAW that I have created over the past 3 to 4 years. And there's one thing I'm going to do before I hang up the boots, is to be a future JTV world champion and hardcore champion. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys on the next one.